Lesson 13 for March 21 to 27, From Dust to Stars, read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Monday, March 23, written in the book. Question. Daniel 12 verse 1 talks about those who are found written in the book. What does that mean? Let's read Daniel 12:1 again. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. The time of Michael's intervention also is described as a time of trouble without parallel. This corresponds to the time when God's Spirit will be withdrawn from rebellious humankind. Then the 7 last plagues, as expressions of God's wrath upon the nations, will be poured upon the end-time Babylon, described in Revelation 16 and in Revelation 18, 20 to 24. Let's look at that one. Revelation 18, beginning at verse 20. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down, and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more, and the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth. For by your sorcery all the nations were deceived, and in her were found the blood of prophets and saints, and of all who were slain on the earth. And the powers of darkness will be unleashed upon the world. Ellen White writes of this time that Satan will then plunge the inhabitants of the earth into one great final trouble. As the angels of God cease to hold in check the fierce winds of human passion, all the elements of strife will be let loose. The whole world will be involved in ruin, more terrible than that which came upon Jerusalem of old. Great Controversy, page 614. End of quote. But God's people will be delivered during this terrible time because in the investigative judgment conducted in the heavenly tribunal, they have been vindicated by Jesus, the heavenly high priest, and their names have been written in the book. In order to understand the meaning of this book, we should keep in mind that the Bible mentions 2 kinds of heavenly books. One contains the names of those who belong to the Lord and is sometimes designated as the Book of Life, as we read in Exodus 32:32. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, I pray, blot me out of your book which you have written. And Luke 10, verse 20, Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. And Psalm 69 and verse 28. Let them be blotted out of the book of the living, and not be written with righteousness. And Philippians chapter 4 verse 3, And I urge you also, true companion, help these women who laboured with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life. And Revelation 17 verse 8, The beast that you saw was, and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life, from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. In addition to the book of life, the scriptures mention books containing the records of human deeds. We read about this in Psalm 56 and verse 8. You number my wanderings, put my tears into your bottle. Are they not in your book? And Malachi 3:16. Then those who feared the Lord spoke to one another, and the Lord listened and heard them. So a book of remembrance was written before him, for those who fear the Lord and who meditate on his name. And Isaiah chapter 65 verse 6, Behold, it is written before me, I will not keep silence, but will repay, even repay into their bosom. These are the books used in the heavenly tribunal to determine every person's commitment to the Lord. These are heavenly records, databases containing the names and deeds of every human being. Some people frown upon the idea of having their names, and especially their deeds, written in heaven. But once we commit our lives to Christ, our names are inscribed in the book of life, and our bad deeds are deleted in the judgment. This heavenly record provides judicial evidence to the entire universe that we belong to Jesus and therefore have the right to be protected during the time of trouble. So to finish the day, why is it that the righteousness of Christ alone, credited to us, is our only hope of being found written in the book? Bring your answer to class for Sabbath. This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind and Hearing Impaired, Christian Record Services for the Blind, the Sabbath School Department, and Hope Channel. You can also listen on the official Sabbath School 4 app and the Apple iTunes app, Sabbath School with Percy Harrold. Remember, God is always faithful.